Okay, following up on last week's What's Your Favorite Star Trek program, a lot of people said City on the Edge of Forever, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and a number of people in the comments of last week's video where we talked about What's Your Favorite Star Trek episode talked about City on the Edge of Forever. And unlike most of the individual episodes of the original series, there was a book written about the single episode by the person who wrote the episode, Harlan Ellison. Harlan Ellison wrote a wonderful script for City on the Edge of Forever. He introduced the idea of the Guardians of Forever. He talked about the way that time works, introduced the character of Edith Keeler, and set the stage as it being in 1930s Earth. As in the series, he was putting her as the focal point in history that made the difference between the start of World War II and the late start of World War II that changed the entire future. And that's about where it stopped. In so many ways, when books or written material is adapted for the big or small screen, often the general idea is taken and the details are completely wiped away and replaced with others. Sometimes they do okay with that. Sometimes they're terrible. A movie I recall, I read Ian Fleming's one children's book back when I was a kid, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and it was a compelling book. It was very, very much a spy adventure, just without James Bond in it, and with juvenile elements, and this magical car. And when it was made into a movie with Dick Van Dyke and Sally Ann Howe, it was completely different. They took the idea of the car that could fly and the father being the inventor, and they changed absolutely everything up, including the entire plot. And while some people liked the film, I thought that it ruined it, having read the book first. Now, having read City on the Edge of Forever, the script, which is in this book, Harlan Ellison spends several chapters of what his problem was with the Star Trek production team. Roddenberry specifically didn't much care for William Shatner, although Shatner very much admired Ellison. In the book also includes the original script. And unlike completely ignoring it, they did take some very important elements out, but some of the things that happened in the TV series were led into being by other characters. For instance, sweeping up the basement was not Edith Keeler's basement. The first person that befriended them was a janitor. So there were a number of characters that just weren't included in this. The productions team at the time said that the problem was that it was unfilmable because they required too many special effects or too many actors, or more likely took the emphasis off the main characters, which in all of those cases I think are just excuses. Now, the original script does not call for Dr. McCoy to be in it at all. So the person who's put all of this in motion was another red shirt, basically. And he had a drug problem, which is what led him to revolt, go down to the planet, and upset history. Roddenberry was very against the idea that anybody in the 23rd century would be that aberrant, and therefore that couldn't happen. And so that was cut, and they put McCoy accidentally injecting himself with some kind of medicine. But the rest of it was rather interesting. There were some characters that were introduced, not just the crewmen, but people that they encountered in their visit, the amount of time that they spent, the amount of running around they did, the amount of action, the fight scenes, that were all taken out. And the emphasis on Spock and having a room full of tubes repairing a tricorder did not happen. He was able to repair a tricorder, but did so off camera. And the way Edith Keeler dies is kind of the same way, but it is kind of a different attitude. They knew much earlier that she had to die before Kirk even became involved with her. So with all of this, also the Guardians were more than one. There were several Guardians, and the time machine was alongside of them. And while there was no stage direction given as to what that's supposed to look like, the Guardians themselves were humanoid. And so it's interesting that in the last season of Discovery, the Guardian is played by a humanoid, and then the portal appears. And so they kind of go in between what Harlan Ellison originally wanted and what the TV series actually produced. But it's a fascinating script. It does not end in the way that the TV episode did. It was a bit more brutal, honestly, and Kirk was left in an epilogue to be in a great deal of pain. This is something, and some of these elements that were in this show seem to be picked up by other programs later in the season, interestingly. So Ellison had a lot of impact on the entire series, honestly, and this episode you'll find elements of in future scripts, which is interesting. So I'm not hawking this book. I'm not getting any money for it, and I don't know who has it right now. I've had it for quite some years, but it's Harlan Ellison's The City on the Edge of Forever, the original teleplay that became the classic Star Trek episode. I recommend it to you, and if you read nothing else in the book, read the script and let me know what you think, if that was a script that could have been shot, or if it was just something that was too intense for television in the 1960s. I'd love to see it produced, perhaps as a movie, in kind of use the new Abrams cast of Kirk and Spock and let them go through this the way Harlan Ellison wrote it. I think would make a tremendous movie. Even with all of the changes, it won an award and was certainly on a lot of people's top 5 list for original series shows, and might even make a lot of people's top 5 list of all of the Star Trek universe. So anyway, that's what I have this time. Remember to subscribe. We would love to have you along so you know when the next video is coming your way. When shows start getting back into production, we'll be here to review them, and we'll talk about some things that are in and out of Trek and in and out of other science fiction things that we come across as we go through the summer. So ring the bell also so you know when the next video is coming your way, although I generally try to keep these about once a week. So until next time, don't go far.